Hello and welcome to the 24th Scouching Report for the 2020 NHL Draft. Today we're going to be looking at one of hockey Twitter's most treasured young prospects for the 2020 NHL Draft that they think is extremely undervalued in Jan Mysak of both HC Litvinov in the Czech Republic and the Hamilton Bulldogs after the new year. I was born of hockey Twitter, and I do believe that there are still some blind spots relative to the NHL establishment, but I do think that it is important to look at the players that you think the establishment is both undervaluing or overvaluing and exploring exactly why that might be. And with Jan Mysak, it was very apparent after the 7 games that I tracked that there were absolutely reasons as to why he ended up ranked 28th amongst North American skaters. Why might that be? Well, let's find out. So if you've never seen a Scouching Report before, the way that we break down a prospect is we look at 5 separate categories: think, move, get, pass, and shoot. Within each one of these categories, we give them a number and a letter grade, where the number indicates the overall tier of talent that I saw in the 7 games I tracked, and the letter indicates the overall consistency within that tier that I saw across those 7 games. First, we go to the think category, and since Jan Mysak spent the first half of this season playing against men in a limited role in the Czech Republic on a pretty poor team, rotating around forward positions and roles, before coming over to North America to play for the Hamilton Bulldogs, where he played center every game that I saw, it was really hard for me to get a really solid read on Jan Mysak's game as it is now and how it might project into the future. But it really does seem like he could be a solid play-facilitating two-way center that specializes moving pucks through the neutral zone. He fills open ice down the middle really well, and he can cover defensive zones efficiently and patiently. On defensive transitions, he supports his defensemen really well when he's playing at the center position, and he's able to jump into physical encounters, grab loose pucks, and move them to open line mates to generate breakouts from there. But there were also times where I felt that he was tracking defensive transitions and focusing a little too much on the puck carrier. And before you know it, there's a trailing forechecker that's a bit behind the play that Mishak completely loses, and it could cause dangerous chances against. And more often than not, I found Mishak to be a hard worker all over the ice, willing to apply himself, and he certainly shows the potential for more. But as we'll see in this video, as is similar for a lot of young players, he is a player that is marked with inconsistency. Away from the puck, he was a bit hesitant to challenge high in the defensive zone and played a little bit too passively on defensive cycles. And there were a few too many scenarios where just taking a couple of extra strides could have really caused some problems for his opponent. Being a little bit too passive, especially in transition and on defensive cycles, can really burn you, especially if you're a center. And there were a few instances where I really felt he was sleeping at the wheel with forecheckers circling around the defensive zone and he just lost track of play, focusing too much on that puck carrier. But I will also say that as he got more familiar with the center position on North American ice, it felt like he started to get a lot more comfortable, especially when it came to defusing offensive pressure from the opposing team. He was able to set the stage for a lot of defensive breakouts with his ability to anticipate play and support his line mates around the ice. And that was something that I saw more and more of as the year went on. So with a little bit more consistency in this area of the game, paying a little more attention to his surroundings as the game goes on around him, and anticipating potential pass attempts and clogging up passing lanes, I think there could be a really interesting future here for Jan Mysak. But again, this is a player where his inconsistencies could really burn him down the road, especially if he wants to play center. So in the think category, I'm giving Jan Mysak a 1D. I think that he has the natural talent profile with his feet and his skill, and the natural tendencies to support his teammates defensively and be unselfish with the puck to play center down the road in the National Hockey League. But taking the foot off the gas pedal on forechecks away from the puck and backchecks away from the puck too often can really burn you. And with Mishak, it's especially frustrating because you see the potential and the talent that he naturally has. So if he can learn to make quick reads, set his feet, and make a play that really pushes play positively more often, there could be a really interesting player down the road here at the center position. Next, we go to the move category, and this is an area of the game where there's a lot to work with Jan Mysak. There was really great explosivity from a standing start, raw speed and raw skill that Mishak showed both with Litvinov in the Czech League and with the Hamilton Bulldogs in the OHL. His ability to drive wide, use the boards to his advantage, and keep pucks far away from opposing defender sticks was really enticing. And I think being able to protect the puck like he could when he was at his best is a really nice ability to have moving forward. But this isn't a player that just stuck to the perimeter either. Especially in transition, he was able to use the middle of the ice to his advantage, especially playing that center position. And in the offensive zone, I saw multiple occasions of him using his skill and aggressiveness to push himself into dangerous areas of the ice to generate dangerous scoring chances for himself. Mishak had 84 offensive zone transitions per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is a really notable number. Now, his rate of maintaining control on those transitions was a little bit below average, but we'll get to why that might be in another section. There were also times where he absolutely exploded up the ice to chase after loose pucks, but there were also other times, especially once he came to the OHL, where I noticed he would take the foot off the gas pedal chasing down those loose pucks, especially when it came down to the choice of either anticipating what the opposing defender will do with the puck once he gets it, or applying himself physically to try to prevent that defenseman from retrieving that puck in the first place. But when Mishak is at his best, he can move pucks with a lot of skill, moving up the ice really well, and an area of the game that I don't see enough of out of a lot of young high-octane forwards is using their skill to be aggressive and push their way into medium and high danger areas of the ice, which is something that I saw Mishak do quite a lot in my viewings. So in the move category, I'm giving Mishak a 1C. I really do think that this is one of the paramount parts of his game. The fundamental tools here are really dynamic. He can play at a lower pace and find line mates patiently, but he can also push the pace really well and be very aggressive with the puck. He can drive up the middle of the ice with the puck, he can move around in the offensive zone using the boards to his advantage, he can do it on his forehand and his backhand, and there's just a lot of nice little talents to work with as a fundamental set of skills. But away from the puck, being more assertive, especially on forechecks more often, could really help unlock a lot more potential for Mishak as a two-way player and might help him gain a bit more of that consistency that really seemed to be lacking in his game. But it's pretty undeniable that when the puck is on his stick, he's a highly capable puck carrier, both moving the puck in transition and moving the puck into dangerous areas on his own stick to generate his own dangerous scoring chances. Next, we go to the get category, and this is one of the two areas of the game where I really see why some NHL scouts might be really down on Mishak. His fundamental skating ability should make him a really bright spot here, but far too often I found Mishak to just be plain ineffective away from the puck. When you see what he's capable of with his mobility, it is extremely frustrating to see him get caught flat-footed in the defensive zone, bending over at his hips too much to hyperextend his reach on forechecks and miss the forecheck entirely, or just plain giving up on too many forechecks deep in the offensive zone, especially chasing down loose pucks. But on the bright side, it isn't like this translated to a tremendous amount of dangerous shot attempts against. His dangerous shot attempt percentage across the 7 games I tracked was 50%, and opponents in transition maintained control of the puck 47% of the time. So that to me really goes to show that Mishak is either on or not on, because it was very apparent that away from the puck he was very inconsistent. But this is a player who, when his feet aren't moving, does seem to anticipate play, especially in defensive transitions, pretty well. But when push comes to shove, there are times where you do need to keep your feet moving, and far too many times I felt like Mishak was just a step or two behind the play. And when cycles were going on in the defensive zone, or the time came for him to pinch high in the defensive zone, his feet weren't moving well enough and he wasn't aware of his surroundings enough to really shut those cycles down. He has the potential to get there though, which is why in this category he's getting a 2F. Part of the positive here is that if Mishak does miss on a stick check or a pass interception, he doesn't give up on the play. He's constantly adapting and trying to keep up with what's going on around him. But similar to a player like Noel Gunler, if you don't know what you're getting from your high-octane offensive talent on a shift-to-shift basis, it can be very hard to convince teams and coaches to really rely on that player in the role that they need to succeed. And as well with Noel Gunler, I have learned to bet on what you see out of a player at their best. And with Jan Mysak, he has a ton of talent when it comes to moving his feet, being intelligent in defensive transitions, and spotting line mates to generate breakouts that I think there's good potential for him here. But you do need to keep in mind how much of a gamble you are making on this player, especially if you're looking at drafting him in the first round. And with Mishak in this area of the game, I think he's a little bit more of a gamble than I think some teams are willing to take in the first round. Next we go to the pass category, and I'm going to preemptively apologize to hockey Twitter here. Jan Mysak will not play very long in the National Hockey League if 4 out of every 10 pass attempts he makes goes to the opponent. And I would be willing to forgive it if this is a player who's sending passes to the slot constantly every single game. But of 78 skaters where I have a decent enough sample to spot trends, Mishak is 52nd in dangerous pass attempts per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. And just for the record, Anton Johannesson, Samuel Knazko, and Jake Sanderson are 3 defenders who make more dangerous pass attempts per 60 minutes. And going back to Mishak and offensive transitions and how he wasn't maintaining control on as many offensive transitions as other centers in a similar amount of offensive zone transitions per 60, a big reason why his transitions weren't done with control as much as other players likely came down to the fact that 40% of his pass attempts were missing their target. But on the upside, when he does make passing decisions, they're done quickly and the idea is pretty sound. It just seems seems like his fundamental ability to hit targets just isn't quite there yet. And when he does choose to send passes into the slot, they're very accurate and they seem very calculated to maximize the amount of danger against the opposing team's goalie. His ability to see the ice in the offensive zone is really solid, and he can thread passes across the ice through multiple layers of defense really well. But his reliability all over the ice and in a multitude of different scenarios really seem to be lacking. And just for the record, of the 7 games that I tracked, his best game completing passes was 69%, and it took 29 pass attempts to get there, which was also the most attempts he had of the 7 games I tracked. And I'm just going to throw this chart up and show you where Jan Mysak is. It plots pass attempts per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 against pass completion percentage. You do not want to be where Jan Mysak is on this chart. You need your centers to have play flow through them in offensive transitions and in the offensive zone, and they need to be able to retrieve and send passes all over the ice in a multitude of different situations. So in the pass category, I'm giving Jan Mysak another 2F. It's not all terrible, but I will say that this is blatantly a reason why NHL scouts are so divided or negative on this player. There are flashes of really solid vision, especially in the offensive zone, and his passing decisions as a whole weren't necessarily bad, so the 2 feels like a comfortable spot for me. But the fact of the matter is, Jan Mysak is a center who had 40% of his pass attempts end up on the opposing team's stick. And of my sample of 53 forwards I've tracked a decent sample of, Mishak sits 36th in pass attempts per 60. So it's not necessarily like he's attempting a ton of passes or not enough passes, but this is just a player that didn't seem to hit his target nearly as much as anyone else that I've tracked. Finally, we look at the shoot category, and this is arguably the most underrated part of Jan Mysak's game. He has an absolutely great nose for using his feet and his hands in conjunction to navigate into open ice in the offensive zone and get dangerous chances for himself. With 9.25 dangerous shot attempts per 60 minutes, 63.5% of his offensive threat metric comes off of his shooting. And across my sample with Jan Mysak on the ice, 15.6% of his team's shot attempts were Mishak from dangerous areas. And that's comparable to high-end NHL prospects in the OHL like Cole Perfetti and Marco Rossi. And I also found there's a level of deception to his game when it comes to shooting the puck in the offensive zone. He's able to use his body and fake a pass and take a shot, or fake a shot and take a pass, and really seem to keep defenses on their heels, being able to use his feet and his hands in conjunction navigating around the offensive zone. And using Mishak's natural tendency to get inside and generate his own shot attempts from high and medium danger areas, it would be nice to see Mishak get a little bit more creative with his decision making. He's able to drive inside, but you can draw in a lot of defenders moving inside and send pass attempts across the crease or into open ice and generate more dangerous scoring chances away from Mishak's stick. And adding that could be a nice tool to pull out of his toolkit once in a while. So in the shoot category, I'm giving Mishak a 1C. I found Mishak to be a really nice shooter with a quick release and a sound mind for finding scoring chances for himself. 58% of his shot attempts were dangerous, but it was really impressive to see how he's able to attack the middle of the ice so often. So increasing the frequency of him pushing into the middle of the ice, since he shows the talent to do so, would be a nice step to go from here. So the way that we wrap up these reports is we look at the best part of a player's game, the good part of a player's game, and the not so good part of a player's game. The best part of Jan Mysak's game is his ability to use his hands and his feet in conjunction and play with a lot of speed and skill around the ice. The potential with the floor of talent in that area of the game that Mysak has is always enticing to me, especially if you can get it outside of the first round. He's explosive on his feet, he generates speed very well when necessary, he can apply pressure to chase down forecheckers and generate breakouts, and it's just a strong foundation to work on even through all of the inconsistencies that I saw in Mishak's game. If you're going to bet on a player based on what you see when they play at their best, Mishak could be a very interesting pickup late in the first round if you're going to bet on his mobility. The good part of his game is his goal-scoring instincts. Coming over from the Czech Republic's Extra League to the OHL mid-season is something that I don't imagine to be particularly easy, but Mishak's speed, skill, and shot working in conjunction together really seem to have no problem translating to smaller ice in North America. His ability to drive inside and generate dangerous scoring chances for himself is always really enticing, and something I don't see a tremendous amount of on a consistent basis out of a lot of young goal scorers. And if his playmaking instinct doesn't necessarily come along in the next few years, he should be at the very least a solid goal scorer at the next level. The not so good part of Mishak's game is just his general unreliability, especially when it comes to passing the puck. Seeing what he was capable of at his best and seeing what he was doing when he was at his worst is really frustrating. You need to be able to rely on every single player on the ice to at least connect on their passes. And if Jan Mysak is not completing 40% of his passes, that is a red flag. It does not matter what position you're playing at, but especially if you're playing center. And you at least need to apply some pressure on a consistent basis when the opponent has the puck. And if you do choose to be physically assertive, you need to follow through on that decision. Backing away from a puck battle at the last second is a good way to both hand possession over to the other team and limit your own minutes moving forward, especially if your trajectory is to play against men in the National Hockey League. So overall, I'm going to be optimistic and give Jan Mysak a 2B. I came away from my tracking of Mishak seeing that two things really were very clear. In the Czech Extra League, I came away thinking that Litvinov was not really using Mishak's best skills often enough and were misusing him and deploying him in situations he wasn't going to be successful. He was dumping pucks a lot, playing the wing when I felt he could play center, and he just wasn't really flashing his skill and offensive ability as much as I would have liked. But in the OHL, it became blatantly clear that to me that was a tactical decision from his Czech team in Litvinov, and there was a reason that that tactical choice was made. When Mishak is a player with the puck, he is unreliable, and a player so unreliable connecting on his passes that I'd almost want him dumping and chasing pucks. His speed and tenacity at its best might actually lend himself well to be a decent dump and chase winger in the National Hockey League, but he has potential for a lot more than that. But if you can't trust your center to complete passes, they're probably not going to be playing center for very long. But with all of this being said, the raw talent profile with Mishak is really promising. He's a mobile player who supports line mates really well, he positions himself well most of the time at both ends of the ice, and there is really nice goal scoring potential. He knows how to get inside on his opponent and get dangerous scoring chances for himself. And if this is a player who slips out of the first round, to me this is an easy call to make early in the second. And at the end of the day, I think he's going to be a serviceable offensive forward, be it at center or the wing down the road. But he definitely needs to work on his fundamental ability to spot and complete pass attempts, as well as generate dangerous chances for his line mates, as well as generating them for himself. When he's applying his feet away from the puck, he can stick to forecheckers really effectively. With his brain, he clogs up play really well and can generate breakouts at a very high rate. And with his skill and speed, he can generate those breakouts and move around the ice with a lot of puck control that was really nice to see. But I do think that there are some red flags that will need some patience and development over the next few years if he's going to really realize his potential. So to answer Hockey Twitter's question, is Jan Mysak a top 15 talent for this season? If I'm an NHL GM, I say probably not. Without the inconsistencies that he showed, and with at least a decent amount of passes completed, then yes, I could potentially see him being at least a top 20 talent in this year's draft. But when looking back on Jan Mysak's career, when all is said and done, he ends up a serviceable middle six forward that can play center or wing with an impressive puck carrying ability and a good goal scorer streak, even if there are some things about his game that you wish he could do a bit better. So that's all for this Scouching Report. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you can click all the buttons you see below me so you never miss another one. If you really liked it, you could subscribe on Patreon or YouTube, where we have exclusive visualizations for subscribers, data sheets for hundreds of drafted and undrafted NHL prospects, as well as merchandise discounts and a Discord server and plenty of other goodies. Or you could pick up some merchandise from the Scouchwear shop, where 50% of all profits go to the Women's Sports Foundation. So that's all, and thanks for watching.